Epic Quest. My name is Robyn Warren, and I'm the health coach and educator behind Geek Girl Strong, a geeky wellness community, and the Healthy Geek Academy podcast. I'm so excited to bring you all into a conversation with these 4 creators who are all geeks that have turned their passions into careers. So, welcome to the quest to becoming a professional geek, where we're going to not only discuss what being a geeky professional is like, but how other fans can also do the same. And to help us get to know you each a little bit better, what fictional story would you all say best represents your own quest to becoming a pro geek? Anybody can start.
I think I've made the joke about being the Goku of comics.
Yeah. Am I comics Vegeta? Is that it?
Yeah.
In what way?
We're always working to
Well, I feel like you're very passionate about it and you train very hard to get good at what you do.
and you're a prince.
I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
Great. And please introduce yourselves
sorry.
your most recent, no, that's totally my fault, and your most recent project or title.
So I'm Sara Goetter. I'm one half of Dungeon Critters.
We got our ARCs right here.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun.
This is the book we made together. And I'm Natalie Riess, and I also have another book series that I'm working on called Space Battle Lunchtime. Here's the new one. This is like the actual copy. I don't know if you can see the spot gloss on camera, but it's quite nice.
Very cool. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
All right, I've got one, Sam, if you want me to buy you some more time. Okay. Okay, so I'm Aaron Reynolds. Hey, everybody. I'm the author of many books for kids, including my newest one, which is on this side here, Fart Quest. It's a cliche, but I guess I would say The Hobbit, because it was a very unexpected journey. I did not know you could make a living with your geekiness. That was never explained to me, and those options were never illuminated to me. So it was only somewhere maybe in the Misty Mountains, or maybe just past, where along my journey, where I started to realize, wait a minute, you can make a living like doing what you love and being right in your sweet spot. So I'd say that's my pick.
Very cool.
And hi, my name is Sam Meggs. I'm the author of Conquest, which is out now, about 2 kids on an epic scavenger hunt at Comic-Con. And I feel like my journey, I'm going to stick with the anime theme, and I'm going to say Sailor Moon, because I'm mostly just like scared and crying all the time. And like don't feel like I should, like I'm like, I have imposter syndrome all the time, and like I'm always trying to figure out like what I'm doing at all times, and I love to eat. So I feel
I relate to that very heavily.
Is it the dub version with like the meaner version of Luna?
Yeah, exactly. Like the mom Luna, yeah.
Yeah, I've said on so many panels about, this kind of work that they're like, how do you do it? How did you, get this far? And I was like, I cry. I just want to cry all the time.
Yes. Crying and food all the time.
Exactly.
My version is just screaming, so...
Well, if you're an angry crier, you get a little bit of both.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
So,
So,
throwing your hands up.
so now that we have a little bit of an idea of who you all are, let's do a little flashback and get to know past you and how you got to where you are. So for each of you, what did you geek out about growing up?
I'm going to go first on this one. Mine's easy. Sorry. Mine's easy. It's Dungeons & Dragons all the time. In fact, I've still got my original. I'm probably the elder statesman geek here of all of us, because I've still got my original first edition Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, and Dungeon Master's Guide that I pretty much lived with in my hands when I was in 5th grade. These are the actual ones that I got when I was in 5th grade. And my whole life was consumed by Dungeons and Dragons, and back then, in the 80s, it was not cool to be square, so it was very much under the radar, and you didn't share it much with your with anybody outside your circle. You didn't share that you were all into Dungeons and Dragons. They were like, you mean that weird thing that is satanic, and what's wrong with you? So that was mine for sure.
I just moved a house, and I don't have like a good setup yet, so I look kind of like there's like a lot of chaos in the background. My laptop is currently sitting on top of my D&D player's handbook. And my Polo's Guide to Monsters like propping my computer up right now.
Nice.
Aaron, I was just going to say really quickly, your books are in great condition.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's I take good care of them, even though I use them a lot.
That's amazing.
They are still in very good shape, and I've even got, if I can dig it out, I think it's around here somewhere. My I don't know if it's here. Back here, I've got like my complete edition collection of Dragon magazines back from the early 80s. So
I love those illustrations.
I keep the stuff like just pristine and dusted. I value it pretty highly.
As you should. That's amazing. Sara and Natalie, can you think of what the first few things you were geeking out about were?
So surprisingly, considering we made an animal book, I was really into Redwall when I was a kid. I read a ton of fantasy books. Like if it had a dragon on it or a mouse with a sword on it, I was reading it.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, I really like Dragon Ball Z, which is, I guess, less like D&D themed. But I also really like the Legend of Zelda. I basically grew up on a Legend of Zelda fan forum back in the day, arguing about the Zelda timeline with other nerds.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Favorite Zelda game of all time?
Wind Waker.
Oh. I'm an Ocarina of Time guy myself.
As am I. All right, Sam. So what about you? What did you geek out about as a kiddo?
My first experience with fandom when I was 12, my first fandom was for Stargate SG-1. I'm still a huge Stargate fan. I'm like the weirdo of like Star Trek, Star Wars, and Stargate. Definitely Stargate. I was huge into that show. I've talked about this a lot, but I think it's because it's the first time I saw a female character in like a sci-fi show who was more than one thing. Sam Carter, not only does she share my name, but she's like an astrophysicist, so she's really smart, but she's also in the military, so she's really tough, and she was also allowed to have boyfriends and be funny, and she was like all these different things instead of just being like girl who was one thing, and I think that really like resonated with me. And I love campy like 90s sci-fi to this day. I love that like aesthetic. And I was on like forums before social media because I'm a million years old. So I was on forums like all through high school. And then when I was 18, I went to my first convention, which was a Stargate convention in Vancouver in Canada. And I was able to meet up with all these women because the Stargate fandom is almost entirely middle-aged women because the show is just like all hot men. So all these like 40 and 50-year-old women like love Stargate. It's like Jason Momoa got his start on Stargate. Like this is who
I know.
The show is like appealing to. So it was like all these women who I had been talking to for years on the forums from like New Zealand and Germany and France and all across North America, who I would never have known otherwise, of course. And we all kind of like converged in one spot, and it was like we were all already friends. We were also meeting for the first time, and we were bonding over this thing that we all knew that we had in common already. And it was my first real like convention experience, and that was when I was like hooked. I was like, this rules. So yeah, I'm still a big Stargate fan.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I don't know if all of you have had this experience during the times of COVID, but online forums are kind of making a comeback. And I'm wondering what's going to, like, people using Discord servers for their communities and all of these different things. I'm wondering what's going to happen to fandom once we're all able to get together again. It's just something I've been thinking about.
Yeah, I actually kind of hope that like really niche forums make a huge comeback, because I know Discord like has been a huge thing. But I feel like that replaces like the old like IRC channels from back in the day. Yeah. And what I really want is like the slower like forum, like the very like organized
posts.
Yeah, like archive posts. It's like super organized. That's what I want.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. So how did each of you get started writing or drawing or just in any of your related creative endeavors? Anybody can go first.
So when I was like 7, So when I was younger, my mom did a lot of like home publishing stuff, and it was in the 90s. So like she was doing the typing on the computer and I guess it was Adobe Illustrator stuff back then. And she noticed that I had written a little book about a dragon. I had like made up the story and I was telling her about it. So she did some desktop publishing stuff to help me make like a little printed out manuscript. The story was called The Littlest Dragon. I was very creative. And yeah, I think there were a bunch of different editions. Like I illustrated one and I let my older sister illustrate one for me. But yeah, that was the first thing I ever wrote. I was very proud of it. It was about a dragon who befriends a princess and saves her from a knight. So nothing about me has changed.
That's very cute. Who would like to go next?
I mean, I got my start drawing comics from reading Captain Underpants.
Oh, yeah.
Because in Captain Underpants, the kids draw comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it and was like, oh, I can draw comics. So I just made like my own like knockoff Captain Underpants stories called The Masked Mystery. That was just a recolor of Captain Underpants, essentially. And from there, I did recolors of other things like Dragon Ball Z, but with a dog person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I read those. Those are good.
Yeah,
she still has them.
Yeah.
We were doing some cleaning, and like some of those jokes are still pretty funny.
Yeah,
you always had it.
Oh, this is so sweet. Aaron, what about you? What were your first bits of creativity like?
Yeah, you know, I didn't. I really go back to that concept that I had no concept that you could take what you loved and turn it into a career. Like when I was a kid, I drew. This was before Wizards of the Coast was even a thing, and it was D&D was made by TSR in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and like that was Mecca to me. I was like that. I don't know where that is, but it's probably amazing. And and now I've been there, and it's okay. But it's not what you imagined as a kid. And but I didn't have any idea that you could. In my head, I was like, gosh, wouldn't it be cool if someday I could work at TSR? But it was like such a fleeting thought because I didn't really. Even it wouldn't even have occurred to me that like people get paid to do this and make a living at it. So when I went on to high school, I knew I had a big imagination. I knew that was a thing. And so there was no outlet for any of my geekiness really in high school, except for theater and choir and show choir and things like that. So I got into that stuff pretty heavily, and along the way thought, okay, well, this is, if I want to use my imagination for a living, then this is what it must be. Must be my only option is to go into theater. So that's what I pursued, and I went to college to study theater. Wow. And that's what led me eventually to writing and other things. But yeah, it's no one tells you when you're in high school, like it's like either go to college and become a normal person or go become a trade person. Like no one says there's all these possibilities for you if you're a creative person. There's so many possibilities. No one says that to you in high school.
So I used to be a high school teacher, and I rant about not recognizing different types of intelligences and talents a lot. I was a PE teacher, so that gets put down, with the stepchildren of schools and music and art and theater instructors. So I'm so glad that you just said that, and that, someone out there is getting to hear that those things are valuable and are important, even when you're just a teenager. A teenager.
Right, yeah.
Sam, what about you?
For early start in creativity, I guess I've just always written stuff. I was really into Tamora Pierce books, especially when I was growing up. I still am a huge Tamora Pierce fan, and those books made like such a big impact on me when I was younger, and I got my dad's in computer science, and so I got my first laptop when I was 12 years old, which for kids today is like but like I was 12 in like the year 2000, so this was like a big deal that I got this like hand-me-down laptop, and it had like a word processor on it, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I started writing stories then, and I had like a poem published in a Canadian anthology when I was like around that age as well. So it was like my first time being published. I still have the book on my shelf somewhere, but I can't bring myself to read the poem because I'll probably throw myself off a bridge. So I had started writing then, and then it was pretty much the only thing I was ever good at. I won like my English award in high school. I did a bachelor's degree and a master's in Victorian literature, serialized fiction, which is like comics and TV basically today, but 150 years ago. And then I became convinced that I never wanted to write again. So I became a publicist briefly because I had done so much school and so much writing. I was like, but it quickly became like, I miss it. But like Aaron said, I didn't know really that you could be a professional like geek, right? Like I was always like, oh, I really want to write for TV, but I lived in like a tiny Canadian town. Like, didn't know like how you made that transition from like living in basically the middle of nowhere in a country where like this stuff doesn't really happen to like making a career out of it. Like, again, nobody tells you how to do it really, or like what you need to do to be successful, or who you need to talk to, or any of this stuff. So I just started writing online for like geeky websites, and an agent approached me through like my Twitter presence and was like, do you want to write a book? And I was like, sure. Okay.
You got discovered.
Yeah, I got discovered, exactly. And then
cool.
The only thing I know how to write about is being a geek. And she was like, that'll work. I think that'll work. And I was like, great. I have no other skills, so it's going to work out really well for me. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of just like, I feel like if I had the information that I had now, or like was more readily available now, I probably would have like moved to LA or Vancouver when I was 18 and just like started writing TV pilots or whatever. But it was like, I don't know, this makes me sound so old, but like, I don't know how one was to access that kind of like information back then. It was like Aaron said, it was like, okay, so doctor, teacher, lawyer, plumber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like those were pretty much your options. And like by getting an English degree already, people were like, oh my God, your parents must be so disappointed. Like, you know what I mean? It's so like, whoa, what are you going to do with that? Which is true. But like, that's also kind of, there's so many jobs. There's
so many possibilities.
Jobs. Not that there's
so many possibilities.
No guidance counselor tells you that, you're imaginative, and yes, you can go into theater, but you could be an animator. You could make movies for a living. You could become a director. Those are not even considered by, no guidance counselors are speaking that language to us in high school. And certainly nothing like, I'm blown away now by seeing these amazing people that I follow on YouTube being, full-time content providers making D&D terrain, like for a living. This guy does this. I'm like, what? That's no grown-ups in your life at a young age or teenage age are telling you these are legit options.
Waker.
So you say that again, Sam?
Like, nobody told you could go make Wind Waker. But you can. You could go do there's so many. You don't have to know how to code.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need artists. Like
it helps to know how to code. But for me, so when I read Captain Underpants as a kid, and then I was just like, oh, comics are cool. And literally, like, in my, like, 5th grade yearbook, there's, like, a section for, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, like, everyone else in my grade was just, like, the president. Or, like, the president, like, professional soccer player, or, like, football or whatever. And I was just, like, comic artist. I already, like, decided I wanted to, like, draw comics for the rest of my life. And I did that. I never at any point wanted to do anything else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just hyper focused on this.
Sara, you just kind of said that you've always known that you wanted this to be your job, but Aaron was kind of alluding to not realizing that being a professional geek was a thing that was even possible. So for those of you who didn't have those thoughts going into everything, when did you realize that this could be more than a hobby?
I mean, I went to school for illustration. I think I knew I wanted to do art at that point in my life, but I didn't know if I wanted to go professionally into like doing book stuff, like book illustration, or if I wanted to try and throw my hat into the animation ring. And I did comics as like a fun side hobby. Side hobby is a weird way to put it. I had very big feelings and wanted to express them somehow. And comics was the best way for me to do that. And I'm sure that's how it is for any other kind of narrative or writing. But I actually got hired on my webcomics. Like I got picked up by an online publisher at that point, Hiveworks, and realized that like, oh, somebody wants to pay me for these. Maybe they could pay me enough to live on these.
Awesome.
And I went from there.
Yeah, great. What about you, Sam or Aaron?
Well, so I was writing online for a digital publication called The Mary Sue, which is like a feminist nerd news website at that time. And I still had a day job for a while in publicity. And it was only when I sold that first book that I was able to quit my day job and focus on that full time. But after I finished that first book, which was The Fangirl's Guide to the Galaxy, which was like about a nonfiction book, basically for being a girl in geek culture, I did 2 more nonfiction books, and I didn't really know how to get into, like, I'd always wanted to write fiction, but I didn't really know how to get into it. And frankly, like, I still feel this way, and I've published like 12 books now. But I feel that the way that a lot of fiction writers talk about fiction writing made me feel as though I couldn't do it. There's like this very mystical way that a lot of fiction writers talk about their writing, like either online on Twitter, like if you read books about writing or whatever, like people talk about it like, oh, my characters speak to me, or like the muse, or like, oh, my characters just tell me what to do, and then I do. I would never, if you're a writer and that happens to you, I think that's amazing, and I'm extremely jealous. I've never once in my life had an experience like that. I love writing. It's, again, the only thing I'm any good at. And every single time I sit down to write, it's the worst moment of my life. Like, writing feels like pulling teeth, even when I'm having fun, even when it's something I'm like really enjoying doing. It feels really hard. It feels like hard work every time I sit down to do it. So people who talk about writing like it's this mystical thing that comes very easy to them, or like creating worlds where they just like access this like meta subspace or whatever of their like fantasy land, like I don't experience that at all. So I felt like I was not entitled to be a fiction writer. But it turns out that actually fiction writing is just a skill.
Yeah,
like,
it's a craft.
Skill. Yeah, that if you practice it and work hard at it and develop it, you know, you too, and read a lot of books and read comics, and I write video games, play a lot of video games, like you just get better. You have people who will be willing to teach you, and you just get better at it. So yeah, I ended up getting a job in video games, and then that led to like a bunch of my other fiction work, which was cool. But for me, it's always been a story of someone seeing potential in me and taking a chance on me and being willing to teach me this thing that I don't know how to do yet. And I feel that it's important to tell people that like no one comes into this world born knowing how to make a comic book or a video game or whatever. They always have someone who says, let me help you. Let me teach you. Let me give you an opportunity. Let me give you a chance. And if you take that chance and you work hard, then, you know, you can do it. But I've had that experience a lot. I feel very fortunate. So.
Well, thanks for saying that, because I think lots of humans and lots of people who like found their way to fandom have a very hard time being patient with learning processes, because everything is just there for us.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And you want to be good at everything immediately. Like I'm like that. I'm like, if I don't do something perfectly right away, I'm like I'm terrible at this.
I'm bad. Yeah.
I won't ever do it again. But like, that's not right. That's not the way.
Yeah. So, Aaron, what about you? How did you finally come to realize this could be more than a hobby?
Yeah, Sam, I so resonate with what you're saying about the hard work and the lack of mystical and so much. Pablo Picasso has this great quote that I'm going to totally butcher it. You'd think I'd have it memorized by now because I love it, but it's basically inspiration is real. Like inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And so this idea that, inspiration's a real thing, that whole, something hits you like a lightning bolt, that exists, but it's not the bread and butter. You have to like be at the desk, like slugging it out. And then it might show up and hang with you for a little bit. So I resonate with that so much. My journey was, I went to school to study theater because I loved it. It was a hobby for me. It was a nerdy passion for me. But I don't know if I would have pursued it if I'd known that there were other options too. But it was the best way I could see forward to doing something I loved for a living. So I went and studied theater. I became a professional actor, moved to Chicago, did theater for years and years. And during that time, I got an opportunity to do some writing for theater. And I had never written anything. I didn't grow up writing. I grew up as a dungeon master. So I was a storyteller.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I was thinking.
Like narrative play is still narrative.
Yes, it's the single biggest thing I can look back at and go, this was the boot camp for my life, really, was being a dungeon master as, a 5th grader, 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader.
I love that.
But I'd never written anything. I was a storyteller, but I never thought of myself as a writer. And then I got a chance to write for theater, and I was like, whoa. Like, you get to be in charge of it all now. You're not just like, you're the actor, but you're the director, but you're the producer, but you're like, you get to invent it all, and you get to be in charge of it all. And that was very fulfilling and resonating to me, this idea that, I mean, it took me back to my days being a DM and going, I get to create whatever I want and make it happen. I'm basically God of this little world, and I get to decide. So that led me to, and during those days, I wrote more and more for theater, and I got a chance to write some theater for kids. And that was it. It was like, okay, I can write for adults, but adults are so boring and so just locked in their grown-up selves. And you can write anything when it comes to kids, because kids are still completely tapped into their imaginations. And so that's when I started trying to pursue writing. Now, and this goes back to, Sam, what you were saying about the hard work. Nobody discovered me. Like, I look at that and I go, wow, what was that like? Like, I want to talk to you about that, because I have no experience at that. Like, I slugged it out. Like, I researched how to get a book published, and I wrote 1 million manuscripts that all just were terrible. And I sent my manuscripts to publishers, and I got rejection letter after rejection letter after, but loved it. And so over the course of that time, when I was seriously trying to pursue getting published, I think I received 390 rejection letters during that time. But I got better. I did the hard work. There was no muse. There was no this mystical thing. It was just putting work and putting hours in front of the paper and getting better and better and better at it. And it took years before I was able to get an acceptance.
It's amazing. You talk about being discovered. So at the Mary Sue, I was writing 7 articles a day online about geek culture for like a year and a half. And so it's a different experience than yours, which is like, I find very admirable and incredible, and like, I think a very much more common experience with publishing. Whereas I just like never once in my life was like, I am capable of writing a book. Like, never once did I think that about myself. Whereas like, but it's the same thing, right? It's like you slog, and you have to put yourself out there and create something in order for the thing you want to come to fruition.
It's so amazing to hear all of these stories. And I am not a writer or an illustrator. I have very little talent here in terms of those things, except for lifting heavy things and putting them back down.
You make your own
God, I
business,
wish.
though. I think what you do is incredible.
Yeah.
So, your
that's
own, like,
what I was
business. Like,
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say is a lot of what you all are saying, I still relate to so much as someone who came from being a public school teacher and was dissatisfied with the way that I could teach. So Aaron, when you were like, I get to like world build and do this thing and it's mine, I relate to so heavily in being able to take the way that I wanted to teach out of my experience as a teacher, a public school teacher for 5 years, and make Geek Girl Strong and bring other people on because they said it was something they wanted. What? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is like a human experience or a specific, like I kind of grew up as an awkward geek experience and finally found my thing and I want to do it now. But whatever it is, it's amazing. And I think all of your stories are really inspiring and amazing. So what was your first paid gig? We're talking about kind of the lead up to becoming a pro. When did that moment happen for each of you?
I was very lucky to be hired in college. Before I started making money from webcomics, a friend of mine had a writing gig with it was a video game that was supposed to teach kids financial literacy, so like money stuff. And they wanted to do a comic portion of it. So I was hired to basically illustrate his scripts, and we made like a little choose your own adventure comic.
Very cool.
It was fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was cute. I guess it technically counts as video games because you would click on it to choose the thing you wanted, but I would say it was more comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think right after I graduated college, there's like that was when like comic anthologies were getting really big. And there's one called Dirty Diamonds.
Which is like Dirty Diamonds.
Yeah, it's an all women's anthology.
They're based in Philly, right?
Yeah, they're based in Philly, and I'm from Philadelphia, or the Philadelphia area. I have to differentiate, I guess. But yeah, I did it was actually about like how you got started drawing comics was the theme. I don't know, it was nice. It was just like a simple 4-page comic, but it was like my first like actually getting paid to draw a comic experience.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
It could have been 1 page, and that's a huge deal. What about you, Aaron?
I would say, I mean, I was a paid actor for years, but I would say when it comes to writing, it was after plugging away, I was working a day job in theater administration and writing. I was a creative director with a theater group. And so I considered that my day job. It was a good day job. I loved the work, but I wanted this other thing now. I wanted to be the writer of it all. And so I would spend 2-3 nights a week, about 2.5 hours writing. That was my regimen every week. I would put in the time and send out my manuscripts and get my rejections. And I collected my 390 rejections over the course of 5 years. And then one day, I got a letter in the mail from a publisher that I had sent a manuscript to for a picture book, and it was a rejection, but it was my best one yet. It was, we love this, but it needs work kind of rejection. So if you want to revise it, I've enclosed 2 pages of notes. If you want to revise it, we'd love to see it again. And so I was like, yes, I want to revise it. So I did everything they suggested, and I sent it back, and a year passed. And then I finally got a phone call from the publisher, and they said, we love your story, and we want to turn it into a book. So that was the first. And then that same publisher rejected my next 7 manuscripts. So I mean, I think it's important to people who are thinking about any creative field, but something you're super geeky about is that I think there's this idea of you've been paid, now you've arrived. And that's not how it works. It's not how it works. I got it, and then I continued to collect rejection letters, and then I got another one, but then I continued to collect rejection letters, and then I got another one, but I continued to collect rejection letters, and that is the journey, is continuing to will it into existence.
I got rejected from Dirty Diamonds.
Full circle.
There you go, right? It's a part of I throw so much spaghetti at the wall constantly, even now. And I think that's something that folks don't see on the outside because people only announce their successes or the things that they sell. For every one thing of mine that gets made, there's 87 things that got either to the first step or the 95th step and then didn't go anywhere.
Sure.
Totally. Yeah. For me, I was working a day job. My day job was in talent relations at like film festivals and at TV studios. So I was like in the daytime, I was like getting George Clooney water bottles at like film festivals and stuff, which was like very odd. And then on the weekends, I was working as a weekend editor at a website called Geek System, which later merged into the Mary Sue, but I was doing it for free for a really long time. So I was working all week and then working all weekend for free on this website. And then after a certain point, they were like, oh, we have a budget now and we can pay you. And I was like, wow. And this is after years of writing for free for like Toronto, like local Toronto geek websites as well. So that was my first. I started to get paid for being weekend editor for this geeky sort of science-based news website. And I framed my first check. I still have it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was like not, it wasn't a huge deal, but to me it was like, it felt like a huge deal to be paid for writing. Felt like something that would maybe never happen. So yeah.
Well, after hearing everyone's stories, and it's kind of like climbing up a mountain, it's very inspiring. I think I've said the word inspiring a lot today, but it's because it's true. Now thinking about what we can offer other people, because all of you have kind of said you need someone to help you on this quest. It's very difficult to do it by yourself. What would you say are your recommendations for fans who are looking to give this a go for themselves?
I'm trying to think of something like very concrete and helpful, because like work a whole bunch is what your memory remembers it as, but like that's not always helpful to just hear, just do it. I mean, working on or making time to do the kinds of things that you want to do and try to focus, like figure out what it is you want to make. So say you want to write books and you're like, okay, I like books, but it might help you to think about, okay, do I want to write fantasy books or children's books, or think about like the markets you want to work for? I don't know. I think being able to create the things you want to make. Like I was making comics to facilitate me being able to make more comics, and making comics made me better at making comics, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think I'm not sure how to best to put it, but I think the idea of you have to make opportunities happen for yourself. I think there is sometimes this idea that someone's just going to come alongside you and mentor you and develop you. And that was never my experience. I had to plop myself into situations where I would be rubbing shoulders with the people who did this for a living, or who I could glean something from. So for me, wanting to become a kid's author, I joined a group called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and I went to all their conferences, and I met people, and I sat in on panels and like this, and I talked, and I made a point of not just watching the panel, but back in the day when conferences weren't on a screen, like going up to them afterwards and saying hi and introducing myself. And that led to meeting people that helped me grow and get better, and meeting editors that later down the road, they wouldn't remember me, but I would remember them, and I would go, oh, they're going to be a good fit for me because I remember them talking about this. So I think whatever it is for you, and these days there's YouTube, and there's so much of people doing their thing out there that I think you can't be shy about reaching out to those people and saying, I want to do what you do. How did you get here? What's my next step? Can you give me a hint?
I feel like it's exactly a combination of those two things. People are always like, how do I become a writer? I really want to be a writer. And I always say the only difference between somebody who wants to be a writer and somebody who is a writer is doing the writing. And there's a big void between people who are like, I really want to write, and people who actually sit down and write something. And the thing is, if you want to be a writer, two things: you have to write something and you have to finish it. Those are the two big things, because a lot of people start to make something and then they never finish it because they're like, it's not good enough, I don't like it, I'm going to start this new thing, which I totally understand the impulse, but people can't understand who you are, what your voice is, what you bring to the table, what you're like, who you are as a writer, unless you finish something and put it out there. And that can be a web comic, that can be, I always recommend for people who want to be video game writers, Twine, which is a free online resource where you can basically make your own text-based choose your own adventure game with like minimal coding. It's super, super easy to learn, but you have to make something and you have to finish it, write a blog, even like anything that can show people your tone, your perspective, your point of view. If you don't have something finished, as an example, people can't know that they'd have to just take you at your word of being like, oh no, I'm totally a good writer. And it's like, everybody says that. Like, you have that thing that shows that you can do this and that you can finish something. And to Aaron's point, maybe fix it and show that you're willing to take notes and capable of editing and, responding to feedback. Like, you have to have that. So that's the first step, finish something. And the second thing is network. I think I hate to say that is true, but it's true. And that can take many forms, of course, going to conventions if you're able to do that, but that's like not feasible for a lot of people. So social media is huge, follow the people that you admire. Yes. Make genuine connections, all that stuff. But my biggest advice is to make connections with people in your own cohort, because it's very cool to follow people that you admire, but the people who are going to come up with you and who are going to support you and assist you and help you out at your level are like the people around your age or like around your spot in your journey, I guess. So you always want to try to connect with people who are like of the same experience level as you, so that you can kind of like be there to back each other up and to, work with each other or support each other or promote each other as you come up. And those relationships will be really important, as long as you come at them from like a really genuine place, of wanting to connect with people. So I think a connection of both of those things. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Making friends is huge, I think. Like, even aside from like, good work relationship, good like professional connection with an editor or something, having friends in a creative space means that you can like bounce off of each other and, write books together.
Yeah. I guess the other piece of advice is that if you're going to make something for free, make sure that you own it, I think, is another huge thing. Like, don't work on spec. Like, don't, I know, like, there's a lot of huge companies will use like art contests or whatever to essentially get free work. Don't. Because actually, like, a big thing is that Dungeon Critters started out as like a free a zine, or like a zine that we sold, that we owned, that we sold at like SBX.
Yeah, it wasn't free. We did sell it.
Yeah, we did sell it, but we didn't get paid to draw it, is what I mean.
We got paid when people bought the
thing. we self-published it essentially, so we owned it, so we're able to turn that into a book pitch eventually, which turned into our book. So yeah, I say if you're going to like not get paid up front to work on something, make sure that you own it.
I guess that's a good point too, to like remember that even though this might feel like a magical creative career and that you're doing something you love, this is still work. You are still doing this. You still, your labor has value. And don't ever forget that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I applaud that one. It's people, you deserve to get paid for your creativity. And so many people are like, well, anybody can do this. Blah. And
then you do it.
Yeah. And people love to talk about doing it. I mean, what Sam was saying before, people love to, I'm on these forums and I'm on this group and this Facebook group, and we talk about writing all the time. And and they'll say, so I'm becoming a writer too. And I'm like, awesome. What are you working on? And they're like, well, I don't have time to actually write anything. But I'm a writer too. And it's like, well, no, do it and then get paid for it. That's both those things are important.
I feel like everyone does have the potential and the desire to make art. And everyone should be able to if they want. But that also doesn't have to be your job.
Right.
Like, you can draw for fun. You can have OCs. It's okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think owning what you're working on is more important than just giving away to like a company that's taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, if this is going to be someone's job, which is kind of what this panel is about, we live under capitalism, whether we like it or not, and you need to eat, and you need a home, and you need all of these things to take care of yourself so that you can continue to create and continue to be okay in general as a human. So I guess this kind of leads into one of the questions I had in mind that was a little bit for me, but also I think people will be able to take something from it, is how do you each take care of yourselves? Especially right now, and especially as creators who have spoken about rejection and have spoken about making sure you get paid and have ownership over your work. How do you do self-care and wellness?
Oh, I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. I say yes to everything. I do free work constantly. To this day, I do free work all the time. I work in IP, so I own basically nothing that I make. Like, I'm terrible at it, and I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm horrible at self-care, and if anyone knows how to fix this, call my therapist. Love to know how to fix it. It's awful. I don't recommend it. Like, I wish I knew how to prioritize my own self-care. I wish I knew how to say no to things. This is like a very millennial struggle. I feel that I monetize all of my hobbies and I don't know how to relax for 5 seconds. And now that I'm a creator, playing video games, reading comics, reading books, or watching TV all feels like work to me as well. So the things I used to do for fun now also feel like work to me, and I don't know how to fix that. So I don't know, do a face mask. Like, I'm literally terrible. I don't know what the answer is. And I just want to be like really like honest and transparent about that. I'm a workaholic and I don't know how to not be that way because we live in a capitalist society that has trained my brain to feel that way.
Absolutely. So
terrible answer. I'm really sorry.
No, it was a very honest answer. And I'm wondering if anyone can help Sam in this panel. Or give her some ideas.
I think something that helps me is compartmentalization. I think that's something I am good at, is compartmentalization. So I don't feel like my hobbies that I do for fun are work. I feel like they inform my work. I feel like they inspire my work, but I'm pretty brutal about sitting down to work when I need to work and then unplugging that. And I think what helps me, let's see, I'm trying to think what helps me. I have a dedicated space where I work and then I leave my work there and I walk away from it. So I think that helps. Yeah. I don't
love to live in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think a couple years ago, I picked up, like completely on a whim, I picked up whittling, like wood carving and stuff, because I saw a book in a bookstore about wood carving, and I was just like, that looks interesting. So I picked it up, and I was like, wow, this is cool. I'll do that. And I've made sure that, like, I'm never going to monetize this hobby. Like, it's always just going to be just for fun. I don't know. I actually have like a little like cat whittle.
But it's so good. Oh my gosh.
I love that.
I don't know. Like, I think just having like something that I'm not like very specifically never going to monetize. I feel like it's just like a relaxing for fun thing. I don't know. I've had like and because of the society that we lived in, I have like thought about how I would monetize it because I don't know. That's just how I am, I guess, at this point. But I don't know. Having like a strict rule about just not selling it, I guess, has helped me just have like a fun side hustle or side hobby.
Yeah. What about you, Natalie?
Every job has its challenges, and creative stuff is no different. One thing that I got really into, especially when I started like full-time doing comics is I always make sure that I cook my lunch. Weirdly, like I will go into the kitchen, I will do all of the steps to create a meal. I will sit down, I will eat the meal. And I feel like having that little break is always something that I almost always make time for, even when I'm crunching, because I can justify it because it's like, oh, well, if I don't feed myself, then I won't be able to work well. So, you know, then that kind of like satisfies the capitalist hell brain who's like, it needs to be worthwhile, but it also allows me to do something that helps me take care of myself.
Yes.
Similar, I've been starting to try and work out lately. There's like a cute workout video game that we've been doing together. And that helps because, again, it's something where it's like, okay, well, I'm taking care of myself. So it is self-care, but it feels productive.
Absolutely. In Geek Girl Strong, in our community, we call doing things like that magic points. So you're like taking care of yourself so that you can build up your MP. And if you let it run out, you're not going to be able to give anything or like, you know, influence the world in any way because you have nothing else to give.
That's a really good metaphor.
Yeah. So I like to bring that up for people who have a hard time with the concept of like, I can just keep going forever. Like,
nope,
you can't.
You're going to get some exhaustion points if you don't stop for a little bit, and your rolls are going to be really crappy. So.
I think it's also important to have things that are just for you. That, like, I have some hobbies that I don't post it online. I don't. It's just for me. You're never going to see pictures of it out there on social media. You're never going to. You know, I play D&D now. In fact, tonight's D&D night, and I'm meeting up with my group tonight. And a friend of mine wanted to live stream it, and I was like, nah. It's you know, it's I've heard of people that are like make a living being like dungeon masters for hire, and I'm like, that is so cool that people are doing that. And in this day and age, you can do something like that. And yet at the same time, I'm like, D&D is just for me. It'll influence my writing, but it's the game time, you know, it's just to fill my soul.
Absolutely. So to kind of round everything out in getting to know all of you, and I feel like I'm friends with all of you now. It's very nice. I've only known Sam from before this. So now the three of you are now my friend as well. I'm an only child. I collect people. What are you currently geeking out about? Like, what is really getting you going in the now that we know so much about your past?
I've been playing a lot of Control, the video game, lately. I'm having a good time with that one.
Come back to me. Okay. About it.
Go ahead, Sam.
I play way too much Apex Legends. All I do is I play Apex Legends like probably 4 hours a day. I played like 400 hours of it last year. It's a huge problem. It's like, but it's so much fun. And I think what I really like about it, and the reason I'm able to like get lost in it, is because it doesn't have a story. Like, it's just a video game with like interesting characters, like a battle royale. The matches are short, and I'm really drawn to the characters. I really like that, so I feel like I can play it without feeling like it's work. So I'm really nerding out about that right now, and I'm also I'm getting it to the point of having hobbies that you do just for yourself and that you don't monetize. I've always been really into baking, but I've always lived in like tiny apartments with like little tiny kitchens, and it's really hard to like do anything in that kind of space. So we just moved, and I have like a workable kitchen for the first time. And so I was like, oh my God, I can bake again. Of course, I'm also trying to eat healthy, and it's quarantine. So I can't, like, you know, usually you bake something, you're like, here, take this to work or whatever. And I take it to work. But now I made like a huge cake from Kim Joy's. If
I saw it. It was beautiful.
Thank you so much. It was really fun. But then I had to eat the whole thing myself, and it was 4 layers. And then I didn't work out afterwards because I'm depressed. So yeah. So I don't know. It's like, I'm getting back into that, which is really fun. But at the same time, I don't know how to make it like a sustainable hobby during quarantine, because I can't be like, eat my Corona cookies to like my friends. They're not going to come eat my.
I might have risked it for the
window.
cake.
Like,
just start chucking like frisbee or dog. Like, I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Aaron, what about you?
Mine, I'm kind of. You guys have both all mentioned so far video games, and I'm a longtime video game fanatic, but I'm getting super analog in the last couple of years. Like I played, I was like hardcore World of Warcraft player for about 15 years. I mean, like deeply addicted to it. Like I think one time I was able to add up all the hours that I had spent playing it, and it added up to like 4 years of my life or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing and terrible all at one time. But I kind of stopped playing, and I've kind of gone totally analog and gotten away from video games. So I've started something that I never did as a kid. I never built models as a kid. And so in the same breath where I just said I do things just for me and you won't see pictures of it, I actually have one with me that I'll share it, but I'm nervous about it because I don't ever share this stuff. It's just for me.
Let's see the model.
But it's a model of it's like an airship. And it's part of a kit, but also part scratch built, which means I made it out of just junk and things. And so yeah, it's kind of steampunky. I think of it like scrap punky, like it's not clean like steampunk it often is.
What did you make?
No, sorry, I meant what did you make the steam cloud out of?
This is like pillow stuffing that I painted with an airbrush. And so like I never done models and anything like that as a kid. I never did anything like that as a kid. And so it's this totally pure hobby right now that I just do for fun, and I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't have to be any good at it, and I have no knowledge other than what I'm picking up off YouTube and stuff like that. And yeah, I can get lost in it just for hours, and it's completely analog, no screen involved, has nothing to do with my job. And so yeah.
As someone who works with geeks all the time about taking care of themselves, I want to commend all of you because everything you just said falls into the self-care category of that last question. So if you were wondering, like, oh, this hobby, does it matter? It absolutely matters. And it sounds like you're all doing a wonderful job of taking care of yourselves. So that's my little like health educator, little gold star for all of you.
Yeah. Cookies for lunch today. Yeah.
Sure, whatever you want.
Get Sam to throw you some cookies.
I'm still waiting for someone to be able to email snacks. And that's going to be the technological height for me, is when my friends
wouldn't download bread.
Yes.
Replicator technology. We're just decades away from replicator technology. I can feel it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to all of you for sharing so much about yourselves with all of us today. If you could tell our viewers where to find you and a little bit more about your most recent project, that would be awesome.
Both of us are on Twitter. I am at Goetter. That's Goetter. You don't pronounce the O for some reason. I'm
Natalie Riess. I am at Snarlbear on Twitter, and my upcoming projects. So I have half of Dungeon Critters with Sara.
Yeah, Dungeon Critters. We're actually also serializing this online at the moment. If you go to like just dungeoncritters.com, there's a bunch of information about the book, like when it's coming out, and you can read like the first 65 pages or so.
Elevator pitch, it's Gay Redwall. And then my other project, Space Battle Lunchtime, this is a third one, but like you learn the characters in the first couple pages. This one is a catering murder mystery, which I'm very excited about. Comes out in October.
Fantastic.
My name is Sam Eggs. You can find me at my name on Twitter and Instagram. I just had 2 books come out, Conquest and The Unstoppable Wasp Built on Hope with Marvel Press, which is a novel all about the Unstoppable Wasp. You can check that out. And I have 4 more books coming out in the next 6 months. In October, I adapted Rainbow Roll's YA novel Fangirl into a manga. It was super fun by the talented illustrator Gabby Nam. She's amazing. So that's out in October, as well as the 2nd edition of the Fangirl's Guide to the Galaxy called The Fangirl's Guide to the Universe, and the Fangirl's Journal for Leveling Up, which is a companion self-guided journal, both illustrated by Kat Good, who is a genius. They look amazing. I'm honored to have her work on my book. And in February, I have my first original graphic novel coming out called Tell No Tales, co-created by Kendra Wells, who is also a genius. I think they're amazing, which is about a true story based on gay lady and non-binary pirates. So, and there's magic and stuff. So yeah, gay Redwall and gay pirates can.
Nice. I'm Aaron Reynolds. I'm the author of tons of books for kids, a lot of picture books like Creepy Carrots and Creepy Pair of Underwear and Dude and Nerdy Birdie. You can find me on Twitter and Insta at A Reynolds Books. And my newest chapter book is called Fart Quest. It's the first book in a series. Comes out next Tuesday. Very excited about it. I'm working on the fourth book right now, so definitely check it out. This is my love letter to Dungeons and Dragons, and don't get put off by the fart if you're like body humor. I don't like that. And behind the fart, there's lots of heart. So, and then I also recently released another chapter book called The Incredibly Dead Pets of Rex Dexter, which is about a kid who gets cursed with the ability to see and talk to dead animals. And so all these dead animals start showing up in his bedroom wanting him to solve their murders. So again, one of the things I love about being a writer is you get to be the director and you get to write about whatever you want. It's an amazing life.
Fantastic.
Robyn, tell people about Geek Girl Strong.
Yes.
So my name is Robyn Warren, and I lead the community called Geek Girl Strong. You can find us at Geek Girl Strong everywhere, but we mostly use Instagram. And if you go on there right now, you'll actually find 15 different self-care ideas, because we did a 15-day self-care challenge that just ended on Saturday. So they're all really like close to the top of the Instagram page. And then you can also hear me talk a little bit more on the Healthy Geek Academy podcast that I'm still getting used to saying because it's still kind of new. But basically, I talk about all of the things we've spoken about today in the scope of fandom and health and wellness all mixed in together. Mm-hmm. And I have on lots of different people and interview them about their own wellness journeys. So again, that's at Geek Girl Strong and at Healthy Geek Pod everywhere, all over the social medias. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Thank you to our viewers. I hope that you learned something because I know that I did. Have a great day. Enjoy Epic Quest.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
Bye.